Griswold's reaction on this decision on Velshi earlier today.
The idea that any official who would engage in insurrection would be barred from taking office except the presidency is incredibly surprising. That basically means that the presidency is a get-out-of-jail-free card for insurrection. As someone who cares deeply about the state of our democracy, I find that very troubling.
Joining me now, former U.S. Attorney and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Harry Litman to talk more about this. This is actually the first kind of ruling, essentially, stating he engaged in an insurrection. Judge Ludwig was actually on our air earlier today and essentially said, of course, he was an officer of the United States under the Constitution. What is your reaction to this ruling and what the judge actually had to say about it?
The headline clearly is the part you're saying of having engaged in an insurrection. No other court had done that. And if you think about it, it's a step on the road, if we get to the end of the road, that had to happen, because this is what trial courts do. She held a 1-week-long trial. She considered evidence from both sides. If this issue were in a higher court, they might opine on what it means to have an insurrection, what it means to engage in, but they couldn't make the ultimate finding that now has been made, and it now goes on to the Court of Appeal. It's true that at the end she blinked, I think it's fair to say, on this officer issue. It wasn't as I understand the Colorado Secretary of State's disappointment, but it's a very close textual reading. I think it's probably a weak one, but it's not crazy. But the bigger point is this: a court of appeal can easily say, we agree with everything she said, but disagree with this final interpretation of what it means to be an officer. As you can see it here, it's not listed. On the other hand, could the framers really have meant that if Jefferson Davis wanted to become president of the United States in 1870, he could have? That will be the argument, and it's an argument that had to happen in order for this to go and succeed. The final point here, Jasmine, only the U.S. Supreme Court, the only way this happens is if the U.S. Supreme Court eventually embraces it. You can't have Trump off the ballot in Colorado and on everywhere else. So if the court above this now says, we agree with her and we defer to her findings, but we disagree and reverse on this it was a sleeper issue. The plaintiff spent a third of a page of a 100-page brief on it. If they now reverse, now it is set up to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And again, unless something like this had happened, all 100 pages of it, we wouldn't have been even out of the gate on this issue. Now we are out of the gate on this issue.
So you're saying this could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Judge Ludwig, though, saying he doesn't actually think the Colorado State Supreme Court will overturn the judge's decision here. What is your take on that?
No, I think he says it will on this little legal issue. I think he thinks that the higher court will take up everything she says. Okay, this is all right on insurrection, okay on engaged, and most importantly, we defer to all the facts here of Trump's intent, et cetera. And then Judge Ludwig is saying that teeny point at the end he thinks it's ludicrous. I wouldn't go that far, but if the Colorado Supreme Court agrees with him, he thinks that they will reverse that part, and that means reverse the bottom line, Jasmine, and actually hold he's disqualified. And it would be at that point that the Supreme Court would have to jump in, and Ludwig and Tribe have said from the start, the only way this succeeds and runs the full course is if it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. And without an opinion like this, the Supreme Court would obviously have said, we can't hold on the facts, but now they have something that they could defer to on the facts.
Harry, just talk about the significance of the ruling that, in fact, a former president of the United States engaged in an insurrection and what that could mean legally for Donald Trump going forward.
It could mean legally that he is out if only a higher court finds that he, in fact, was an officer of the United States under the meaning. It's by far by far the more important issue. Now, she comes to a legal judgment of what an insurrection is that a court of appeals might not agree with, or the Supreme Court, and she gets involved in a way that the Supreme Court might say, as every other court has so far, this isn't for us. But this is the necessary and real sort of seismic ruling. Yes, he engaged. His First Amendment claim is wrong, and in an insurrection. So this is 95% of what an opinion disqualifying him would look like, and the extra 5% is something that a higher court can do, whereas they couldn't do the part that she has now done. They couldn't adjudicate it on the facts. It's really big, and in ways that mainly go against Trump.
Harry Litman for us. Thank you, Harry, as always. Appreciate you. So in Israel, everybody, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials, they have just kicked off a press conference. Benny